Hello everyone, and welcome to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Stu Reid here with Evan Lasek and Kelly Warner. After an awful start to the season, the Philadelphia Eagles just got their first win on Sunday versus a heavily injured San Francisco team, and are now the division leaders in the NFC East with a 1-2-1 record. Evan and Kelly are here to go over what went right for the Eagles in Sunday's game and what problems still remain. Evan, I'll start with you. Carson Wentz has had a lackluster start to the season, averaging his worst QB rating to date. What did you see from his performance on Sunday?
Well, Stu, the thing with this game here is the Eagles may not have played that good, but the 49ers just played worse. Carson Wentz is able to hit a beautiful pass to Greg Ward. I really like that throw. It may not stick out to a lot of people, but it was just enough to say, hey, maybe Carson Wentz can still play football in this league. He's on the run. He's able to hit a moving Greg Ward in between two guys. Questionable throw, yes, but it's completion. It moves down. At times during this season, he has not been able to hit that pass. It's either too low, too high, or he's underthrowing him, and it's an interception. So he showed signs of life this game, in my opinion, but there were also times like the interception that he throws. That was not entirely his fault. It's tipped at the line. He's avoiding pressure here. It's really good on his part, but he really tried to throw. He really tried to force another throw. We've seen it all season. There was nobody there, but he wanted to get the ball out of his hands. It's 1st and 10. You still have 3 more downs to work with, but he tried to force a throw. So Carson has 7 interceptions to 4 touchdowns this season. He does have some rushing touchdowns, but I really didn't see he was a serviceable quarterback this game, and it was just enough to get his team the win.
I completely agree, but something that stood out to me about Carson Wentz in this game is you got some reminders of the Carson Wentz of yesteryear with all the running he was doing. I mean, I was thinking about Carson Wentz from 2017 Redskins when he came out of an entire dog pile. And then here he is getting rushing touchdowns. And he went for 7 runs for 37 yards. And, this is the type of guy, when Carson Wentz goes running, you're like, is he going to snap his knee? So I was glad that it seemed like he was running with a little more confidence and he wasn't as worried. And, this is a banged-up offensive line he's playing behind. But I did think they did a pretty good job of giving him time. If you saw that interception, they definitely gave him, he had time there. There was just no one open, or whatever the issue was. But I'm glad that he is starting to make more decisions, because I've seen that was his problem, is more his brain. So I'm glad he's thinking more options and taking on the run.
This throw here to Fulgham, I really liked it. I think that was his best throw of the season thus far. 42-yard dot to a guy they just signed on Saturday. So as you were saying, I think his running offense really helps. I don't think he's that scared. I think the last 2 seasons after his ACL tear, he was a little scared to run the ball again. He didn't want to face any injuries. But this is a perfect pass. He had time in the pocket. He was able to hit a guy on the move 40 yards downfield. I really like that throw. But I want to talk about Miles Sanders real quick and Zach Ertz. Miles Sanders had a great start to the game, but then they just stopped feeding him. Second half, he barely touched the ball. Zach Ertz had 4 catches for 9 yards. I believe Miles Sanders had 13 rushes for 49 yards. He didn't really move the ball in the second half. They just kind of stopped running. They felt like they were playing down the entire time, so they just wanted to let Carson throw. Questionable, but they got the job done in the end.
This was a very injured offense coming into this game missing all 3 of their starting receivers, meaning backup players and rookies getting their time to shine. How did Wentz's mix of weapons look?
We're seeing what we saw last season, which is Wentz looking better with a random band of rookies and backups than he does with his starters. And that might go back to what people often say about Carson. He never had control of his team and they never rallied around him. Whatever the reason is, these rookies and backups have been looking great. We already touched on Travis Fulgham. He was literally not even into the active roster until Saturday. And now here he is making probably the best play of the entire season for any Eagle. And then every Eagles fan is like, who is this guy? And that is a common phrase used throughout these games. And then you have Greg Ward, who was a star last season, and he made better plays than any other starter we've had so far. So the best bet for the Eagles this season is if they keep this going forward and keep lighting up like they have.
Yeah, no-name players making big-time plays. That seems like an Eagles philosophy at this point. Next man up, and it worked out this game. We're going to see how it goes for the rest of the season. We saw Alex Singleton make a great play. We're going to talk about that a little more later when we talk about defense, but they really stepped up, and Carson Wentz must have enjoyed it. These are guys that are fighting for a roster spot, and they definitely showed it.
Moving on to the other side of the ball, the Eagles' defense was facing a 49ers offense that was missing a plethora of starters, including Jimmy Garoppolo. With that in mind, How do you guys think the Eagles defense did?
Yeah, like you said, this is a banged up 49ers team. The Eagles, they got the job done. They, made the big plays enough to win the game. But when you're playing against basically the entire second string of the Niners, you look dumb. It looked like they didn't know what a tackle was. Look, that is 5 guys that he just ran past. The missed tackles were a big problem. And then you got guys like Brandon Ayuk just literally hurtling over a man into the end zone. And of course, you can't account for awesome plays like that, but it's still, he could have been pushed down earlier than that. And so we'll cut that out.
So we got to see the Ayuk play. We talked about big name or no name players making big time plays on offense. We didn't see that on the defensive side of the ball. These backups came in and they couldn't tackle to save their lives. They're not practicing to be starters on Sundays. They are guys that have to fill a need. Avonte Maddox is out. We had Rudy Ford in there for the Eagles team covering George Kittle. George Kittle blew up for 11 catches for almost 180 yards. These guys are not preparing. Darius Slay has played great, but these backups are really not able to tackle anybody on the 49ers teams, it seems. And these are guys that they're going to have to prepare for the rest of the season. So it's going to be interesting to see how Doug Peterson controls and coaches these young guys who don't really play that often and how he can help with the injuries going on to the Eagles team.
With injuries to starting safety Rudy Ford, starting corner Avonte Maddox, and star defensive tackle Fletcher Cox battling through an abdomen injury, how can this defense rally around a star player like Darius Slay?
Talking about Darius Slay has played fantastic football. He's averaging 30 yards a game to the star receivers on the other team. So he's been playing great football, but again, that's an Alex Singleton play right there. That was the biggest play of the Eagles. That was the second biggest play of the Eagles season so far. Alex Singleton hasn't played all season. He stepped in for guys like TJ Edwards and Duke Riley who got injured again. The injury bug bites the Eagles every single year. So Singleton stepping up and making a play like that on a day he didn't know he was actually going to play football, he was just there as a backup, that is huge. These are no-name players making big-time plays. I cannot stress that enough. This is the next-up mentality for the Eagles. They have it year in and year out. So tackling, again, huge issue. They had McKinnon behind the line for 5-yard loss. He's able to scramble. Yes, it was 3rd and 21, but he's able to scramble for 16 yards on a 5-yard loss. That's stuff they have to work on. Doesn't matter how impressive their defensive line is. They just need to work on tackling from here on out.
Besides the no-name guys that they're playing with, they've got Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox. Those are like the only veterans they have that aren't hurt, and they're great. They're doing great. But when they're making mistakes, and they can because they're human, but when they're holding the whole defense up, it's not going to work, especially when Fletcher Cox, like he said, isn't even 100%. I think he might come back, but he could come in and out, and you can't have your whole defense relying on these 2 guys. And if we just saw Brandon Graham even couldn't get someone down. I mean, they're aging. It just is what it is. And so these other guys need to step up. The coaching needs to help them step up to get the job done.
The Eagles squeaked out a win versus the 49ers backup team. How can the Eagles build off this momentum before heading to Pittsburgh to face a stout defense this Sunday?
So, as we've mentioned, I think that it's all about these no-name guys that will probably still be playing because I'm sure the IR list will be a mile long again for the Eagles next week. They need to keep up what they've been doing. Greg Ward, Travis Fulgham, they need to come back, keep these things up. Carson Wentz needs to keep his head straight, and if they're making plays like they did this last game, they should be okay, and the defense needs to get their head straight and make these tackles.
Play calling was still questionable in the first half and second half. Carson looks serviceable, but this Pittsburgh defense, they're not banged up, unlike the 49ers defense. I don't think the Eagles' momentum is going to be they have to round and pound immediately or else they're just going to fall behind early. So their momentum is going to have to be with Carson airing it out. He only had 2 deep balls the entire game. He have to throw the football downfield or else they're going to get behind really early.
Well, we'll have to see how the Eagles do going forward. That wraps it up for this edition of Penn State Sports Night. For Kelly Warner and Evan Lasek, I'm Stu Reid. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching this edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also, follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.